They didn't erase his research because it was wrong. They erased it because it worked. In the late 1980s, a Russian physicist named Victor S. began testing what he called field command feedback loops, the idea that human intention, when charged through coherent emotion, could directly instruct electromagnetic systems, not influence, instruct. Machines, signals, even biological tissue would respond as if reality itself was obeying a code only consciousness could write. His data showed a pattern that no institution could explain without rewriting physics, measurable energy fluctuations appearing milliseconds before any electrical input was applied. In other words, the field knew the command before the command was sent. He described reality not as particles in motion, but as a programmable grid, a living code that reads emotional charge as syntax. Emotion wasn't random chemical activity. It was instruction, current shaped into linguistic form. He proved that fear, focus, and belief are not abstract states, but precise commands within this field. Then his lab burned down. His research vanished. And the last interview he gave ended with one line that never left me. They think energy is matter in motion, but energy is obedience waiting for command. Everything we were taught about cause and effect collapses under that sentence. Because if energy obeys the quality of consciousness directing it, control isn't about power or technology. It's about emotional calibration. Whoever controls the command signal of emotion controls the feedback grid of reality itself. This isn't myth, it's mechanics. The real reason certain patterns repeat in your life has less to do with luck, and everything to do with how your field is reading the code you emit. When you understand that, you stop reacting, you start programming. Every field follows a syntax, not words, charge codes. Victor discovered that emotion carries an electromagnetic signature far sharper than thought alone. A thought without charge is static. But once an emotion fuses with it, it becomes executable code, a command that the energetic grid cannot ignore. He mapped this like software architecture. Emotion as voltage, thought as syntax, attention as the processor that routes both into the field. His experiments revealed what he called pre-active signatures. Before any physical event occurred, sensors detected micro-variations in electromagnetic coherence, as if the field was already aligning to a decision not yet made. He found that intention creates a pre-physical command, and the universe responds by restructuring probability around it. Reality bends silently to prepare for what consciousness is about to express. That's why you can walk into a room and feel tension before anyone speaks. The field reads emotional code faster than speech, faster than logic. The signal doesn't wait for permission. It executes immediately. The mechanism is brutally simple. Emotion, dash amplitude, intention, direction, attention, stabilization. Most people leak power because their emotions broadcast contradictory instructions. Love fused with fear, ambition tangled with shame. The field receives overlapping code and splits its response, creating static, delay, or collapse. That's why outcomes fluctuate, projects stall, relationships glitch. The grid isn't punishing you, it's confused by your conflicting commands. When Victor tested coherent emotional states, calm, focus, gratitude, determination, the field responded with precision. Sensors recorded symmetrical waveforms and harmonized patterns. But under stress, chaos returned instantly. His final unpublished notes called this signal sovereignty. He wrote, "Coherence is command authority. Chaos is revoked access. That's the hidden mechanism behind every success, every failure, every miracle. The field doesn't care about your words. It obeys the voltage behind them. And the more emotionally coherent you become, the faster your reality organizes to match. If energy is obedient, then most people are slaves not to others, but to their own untrained broadcast. And here's where it gets darker. Once you understand that command signals can be hijacked, emotionally, socially, even electronically, the entire game of control looks different, because the real weapon isn't technology. It's emotional resonance. The biggest lie ever sold about energy control is that it's mystical, something that belongs to prophets, monks, or machines locked behind laboratory doors. That myth was the perfect cover. It kept you from realizing that you're already coding reality every second, whether you know it or not. Victor used to say, energy doesn't wait for belief. It executes current orders. And that's where the misunderstanding begins. People think belief is the switch. It isn't. Emotion is. Belief only stabilizes the emotional current long enough for it to execute. If your emotion is chaotic, no amount of belief will stabilize the signal. Let's make it visible. Imagine you've just had an argument. Your heart is racing, your mind replaying every word. You walk away furious, trying to calm down, but inside, your emotional voltage is still spiking. What you don't see is that this surge sends out command codes, chaotic, uncoordinated frequencies, into the field around you. The environment begins mirroring that pattern. Technology glitches, small frustrations multiply. Even people near you start feeling irritated for no clear reason. You think you're just emotional, but you're actually flooding the field with scrambled syntax. The moment your attention locks onto a problem while you're in that charged state, you amplify it, like hitting send on a corrupted file. Now here's the twist Victor uncovered. When you reverse that same charge through intentional focus and breath coherence, the same field becomes an amplifier for precision. The signal doesn't care if it's anger or peace, it only obeys clarity. That's why some people seem to manifest easily while others fight for years. It's not luck, it's code discipline. The consistent emotional frequency behind their actions tells the field exactly what to do. The undisciplined send mixed packets. Desire plus doubt, action plus avoidance. The field splits. This means control of energy was never about control of others. It was about mastering the broadcast architecture of your own system. Emotion, breath, and focus aligned into one stable output. Once Victor proved this feedback loop could alter electrical responses in machines, his data was confiscated. Because if the public understood that emotional coherence is the primary command language of reality, every external system of control, political, social, technological, would collapse overnight. They erased his research to keep humanity emotionally reactive, not electrically sovereign. Because a reactive population is easy to steer. A coherent one is ungovernable. Your nervous system is not just biology, it's your command interface, the control panel that translates emotion into signal. When Victor mapped the interaction between emotional charge and measurable electromagnetic fields, he found something startling. Every spike of anxiety, every wave of calm corresponded directly to electrical activity measurable in the skin, breath rhythm, and heart coherence. The body wasn't reacting to emotion. It was the translator of it. The nervous system turns emotional voltage into physical broadcast. That means your state isn't private. It's signal transmission. The more fragmented your nervous system, tense muscles, shallow breath, sensory overload, the more scrambled your outgoing command becomes. And the more stable, regulated, and rhythmically coherent you are, the more direct your communication with the grid of reality. Calm isn't passivity, it's precision. Victor's notes describe this like tuning a frequency generator. The sympathetic system, fight-flight, increases amplitude. It creates power, but it's unstable. The parasympathetic system, rest-restore, stabilizes the waveform. You need both, power and stability. But modern life traps people in constant sympathetic activation, meaning endless power with no coherence. The result? Burnout, anxiety, fragmented manifestation. That's why so many high performers crash emotionally even when everything looks perfect. Their voltage is high, but their command line is scrambled. There's a way to recalibrate it, a direct 45-second practice that Victor called phase reset. 1. Inhale slowly through the nose for 5 seconds. Feel the rise in the spine like an electrical charge climbing a circuit. 2. Hold for 5 seconds. Let the charge settle in the chest, steady, not forced. 3. Exhale through the mouth for 7 seconds. Imagine the release coating your field with stability, as if pressing save on a program. Repeat 3 cycles, that's it. This resets the body's electromagnetic coherence almost instantly. Sensors in Victor's lab showed heart rhythm synchronization and normalized field amplitude after just 2 rounds. What that means, your system re-enters command stability. Once you're coherent, emotion becomes data, no longer chaos. Anger translates as a sharp directive. Sadness becomes deep recalibration. Joy becomes acceleration current. Without nervous system stability, all energy work becomes guesswork. With it, every breath becomes an encoded command. Because the field doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your waveform, and the waveform begins in the body. When your nervous system becomes calm under pressure, your commands stop leaking. Your life stops glitching. You stop reacting to the field, and the field begins reacting to you. Every emotion is raw voltage, but voltage alone doesn't define outcome. Only how it's directed does. Victor believed emotion was never meant to be suppressed or indulged. It was designed to be wielded. Each feeling, no matter how dark or light, is a specific type of electrical current with a purpose. Anger ignites, fear contracts, love harmonizes, grief purifies, joy amplifies. The tragedy is that we were trained to label them as good or bad instead of understanding their function as energy codes. When emotion is unconscious, it controls you. When emotion is observed, it becomes fuel. Let's test this in real life. You're preparing to speak in front of a crowd. The familiar storm hits. The tight chest, the heat, the pulse. You call it anxiety, but Victor would call it unrefined current, ready for assignment. Most people try to calm down, suppressing the surge. But that suppression tells the field, reject command. The energy loses coherence, turns static, and your voice shakes. But if you instead breathe into that current, steady the nervous system, and focus it toward clarity, the same surge becomes amplification. The field around you synchronizes. People feel presence rather than panic. You didn't remove fear. You refined it into charge density. That's the secret of emotional alchemy. It's not about escaping your feelings. It's about instructing them. Emotion is energy in its most programmable form. Victor's erased notes described an experiment where subjects were wired to sensors while recalling painful memories. When they resisted the emotion, waveforms became erratic. But when they consciously allowed the emotion while maintaining steady breath, the same waveform transformed into symmetrical frequency. Coherence under intensity. That's the mark of energetic mastery. You can use sadness to sharpen empathy, anger to define boundaries, excitement to manifest acceleration. The difference between destruction and creation is not the charge, it's command clarity. Untrained emotion is a weapon turned inward. Trained emotion is propulsion. That's why those who fear their feelings stay trapped in cycles of self-sabotage. They're burning their own signal fuel. Once you learn to ride the voltage instead of resisting it, your reality obeys like circuitry under stable current. Because the universe doesn't punish intensity. It amplifies whatever signal carries coherence. And when that power stabilizes, you realize your emotions were never your weakness. They were your broadcast tower. Victor used to warn, your field is programmable, and anything that can be programmed can be hijacked. Every modern system understands this except the individual. Advertising, media, algorithms, all built on the same principle, emotional entrainment. If they can shape what you feel, they can override your internal command system. You think you're making choices, but you're executing foreign code. Energy control didn't vanish with Victor's research, it just changed hands. The moment his findings proved emotion could direct electromagnetic behavior, that data became weaponized. Entire industries now run on induced frequency disruption, engineered chaos to scatter the public's coherence. A distracted nervous system is easy to steer. Here's how it happens at a micro level. You scroll your phone. Every image, every tone, every burst of sound triggers micro-emotions, spikes of dopamine, flashes of envy, tugs of fear. Your field starts oscillating wildly, never stabilizing long enough to issue a clean command. You lose signal authority. The field can no longer distinguish between your true intent and external interference. Victor called this field parasitism, not metaphorically, but literally. When a system's frequency is destabilized, it becomes receptive to stronger surrounding patterns. That's why collective emotion, panic, outrage, mass fear, spreads so fast. People aren't influencing each other psychologically. They're resonating energetically, caught in feedback loops of hijacked command codes. But he also discovered how to reclaim the field. It's not through withdrawal, it's through conscious recoding. First, recognize interference. The body always knows. Your breath shortens, chest tightens, focus fractures. That's the alert system. Second, interrupt the loop. One deep, slow exhale while dropping your shoulders. That single action signals to your nervous system. Command restored. Third, redirect voltage. Instead of resisting the trigger, absorb it. Transform the emotional spike into a carrier wave for your own intention. Clarity, direction, purpose. The hijack collapses because the field recognizes a stronger, self-generated signal. This is the hidden warfare of attention. You don't fight the noise, you override it with coherence. Imagine someone insults you online. The immediate reaction is emotional, anger, defense. But in that instant, you can feel the parasitic code trying to attach. If you pause, breathe, and amplify neutrality, you overwrite the command. The system loses its grip. That's the art Victor called energetic command reclamation. It's not rebellion, it's restoration. Because once your field restabilizes, nothing external can run its code through you again. And here's the real danger for those in control. A coherent individual can reset the resonance of an entire room or an entire system. Victor's private journals contained a series of what he called reprogramming protocols. Not rituals, not affirmations, but literal energetic recalibration techniques designed to rewrite corrupted signal patterns. He claimed these were field-level mechanics, practical ways to clean and reformate the command codes of your emotional system. Each tool works like debugging software, not by forcing positivity, but by restoring coherence where interference fractured the signal. I've refined 4 of his most effective techniques. 1. Breath code sync. Breath is voltage management. Every inhale charges the circuit. Every exhale discharges distortion. To sync the code, breathe in through the nose for 6 seconds, focusing attention on the space between the eyebrows. Victor called this the command node. Hold the breath for 2 seconds while silently stating your current focus, stability, clarity, alignment. Exhale slowly for 7 seconds, releasing all microtension from the shoulders and solar plexus. Repeat 3 cycles. The nervous system synchronizes heart, breath, and field, restoring coherent broadcast. 2. Charge, reset. Find the point in the chest that feels electrically dense, the knot behind emotion. Place your hand there. Don't try to dissolve it. Just feel it fully for 15 seconds while breathing evenly. Imagine the charge cooling, like metal losing its glow. This stops emotional overdrive and resets amplitude to baseline. The field reads this as system recalibration. 3. Focus, redirect. Victor noted that attention behaves like a current beam. Wherever it lands, energy flows, but if left unanchored, it diffuses. The trick is deliberate refocus. Pick one visual point in your environment, a wall corner, a light reflection, and sustain gaze for 30 seconds while breathing rhythmically. Let the mind quiet. You're restabilizing the processor of the field signal, attention, so intention becomes executable again. 4. Field seal. This was his most controversial method. He claimed emotional openness without structure made humans vulnerable to external command fields. To counter it, visualize a thin, luminescent membrane around your body, about 1 meter out. With each breath, see it pulsing softly, not as armor, but as calibrated coherence. You're not blocking energy, you're defining boundaries of your signal. Once sealed, your broadcast remains pure even inside chaotic environments. These 4 tools are the energetic equivalent of system maintenance. Use them daily, before meetings, after emotional overload, or when creativity stalls. And here's where it becomes interactive. Have you ever walked into a room and felt your mood shift instantly? Like the atmosphere itself was coded differently? Tell me your most vivid moment like that in the comments, because that's not imagination. That's the field reading you, and you reading it. Even when you start mastering these tools, the grid has its countermeasures. Every system that evolves towards sovereignty encounters what Victor called energetic traps, feedback distortions built into the environment to pull your signal back into noise. They aren't punishments. They're friction points designed by collective frequency inertia. The key is to see them before they hijack coherence. The first trap is overforce. When you realize energy obeys command, the ego wants control. You start pushing reality, visualizing harder, focusing longer, demanding outcomes. But overforce fractures coherence. The moment you strain, your nervous system tenses, broadcasting instability. Victor compared it to yelling at a microphone. The louder you shout, the more feedback screeches. The field doesn't need volume. It needs precision. Power doesn't come from tension. It comes from exactness. The antidote: do less, intend cleaner. Issue your command once, emotionally charged but detached, and release. The grid executes faster when you stop checking if it worked. The second trap is energetic leakage. Every moment you seek external validation, over-explain your emotions, or spiral through social feeds, you open micro fissures in your field. Small leaks, constant drain. That's why exhaustion follows social overstimulation. Not because of introversion, but because your system is broadcasting without return flow. Victor's solution was simple. Practice silent charge. Spend 5 minutes daily in absolute stillness, Eyes open, no music, no mantra. The charge starts sealing itself. The third trap is split signal. It's when your emotional current sends opposing commands. Desire mixed with fear, ambition shadowed by guilt. The field receives a dual instruction and stalls. To merge signals, Victor advised a precise technique. Place attention on the heart, breathe steadily, and verbally merge both intentions. Say softly, "I choose both clarity and safety," or "I allow success and ease." The field reads unity and harmonizes probability accordingly. The fourth trap, the most insidious, is resonance drain. This happens when you unconsciously synchronize with lower frequencies. Gossip, collective outrage, cynicism. Your voltage aligns to ambient noise, and command authority dissolves. The body warns you. Subtle heaviness, scattered focus, dull emotion. When you feel this, immediately break the loop. Change environment, move the body. Expose yourself to open space or silence. That shift reboots your baseline frequency. Victor believed humanity's greatest weakness wasn't ignorance, it was frequency fatigue. When people lose coherence, they forget their command language. They think they're tired, but what's really drained is signal purity. Each trap can only hold you if you forget you're the programmer. Once you witness the mechanism, you step outside it. And when you step outside it, the field recalibrates, as if reality itself was waiting for your system to remember who's issuing the code. The real test of energy mastery isn't in meditation, it's in motion. Anyone can feel balanced in silence. But coherence that moves through action, conflict, creation, that's sovereignty made visible. Victor called it dynamic integration, the art of maintaining signal clarity while reality keeps shifting. Because the field doesn't reward isolation, it rewards adaptability, voltage held steady under friction. Start with the body. The nervous system is your live instrument. Every gesture you make either reinforces coherence or scatters it. Walk slower. Speak from the diaphragm. Let your movements follow breath rhythm instead of emotional impulse. You're teaching your field to obey internal tempo rather than external pressure. Then integrate through choice. Every decision is a micro-command sent into the grid. Most people make choices from reaction, avoidance, urgency, doubt, and wonder why their outcomes feel unstable. When you decide from coherence, the field stabilizes behind you. Victor used to measure this. After participants reached heart rate coherence, their next action triggered smoother environmental feedback. Doors opened, calls aligned, resistance vanished. He wrote, "Reality aligns faster with movement that carries internal stillness. Next comes interaction. Integration means you can hold your signal inside another person's storm without absorbing it. Try this. The next time someone projects frustration, imagine your field pulsing gently, not as defense, but as steady rhythm. Keep breath smooth, eyes relaxed. Within seconds, you'll notice their tone drop, their pace slow. That's not psychology, it's entrainment. The more coherent frequency reorders the chaotic one. This is why Victor's disappearance mattered. He'd proven human coherence could recalibrate group fields. One stabilized individual could shift collective charge. The experiment was simple. One subject maintaining deep calm among anxious participants. Within 5 minutes, measurable synchronization spread through the room. Energy coherence is contagious. Integration also means learning to convert friction into focus. When the world pressures you, deadlines, noise, arguments, you use that compression as energy. Instead of leaking, you refine. Each challenge becomes voltage you redirect toward clarity. The harder the resistance, the denser the charge available. Victor called this energetic Aikido. You don't fight opposing forces, you re-aim them. Once you experience this, life stops feeling random. Coincidences multiply. The timing of events sharpens. The world begins to mirror your steadiness instead of your stress. Because when coherence moves, reality follows. And once motion becomes command, there's no going back. You realize the system was never external. The code was always running through you. When Victor spoke of energy control, he wasn't talking about levitating objects or bending spoons. He was describing how coherence reshapes every domain that runs on power, money, relationships, purpose. Because once the command grid aligns, every structure in your reality reorganizes itself around the frequency you maintain. Start with money. Victor viewed it not as currency, but as condensed attention, crystallized energy exchange. He noticed that people who oscillate between desire and fear of scarcity constantly disrupt their financial field. The universe mirrors their split command. I want and I fear at once. Transactions stall, opportunities glitch. But when emotional neutrality meets clear purpose, not desperate wanting, just coherent intent, flow stabilizes. The energetic grid interprets that as abundance authority. Try this field recalibration. Before any financial decision, breathe once. Visualize your body as a power conduit. Current flowing evenly through every limb. Don't hope. Don't manifest. Just command calm. Money follows regulation, not tension. That's why people who seem relaxed around wealth attract it. Their field isn't fighting its own signal. Then there's relationships. Every interaction is an exchange of frequency. When two coherent fields meet, they harmonize. When one is scattered, the stronger coherence dominates. That's why certain people drain you and others recharge you. It's field arithmetic. Victor taught that attraction is not chemistry, but resonance seeking stability. The body interprets coherence as safety, and safety amplifies attraction. But the danger is dependence. If you attach to someone's signal to feel stable, your command authority transfers. Emotional addiction is energetic enslavement disguised as love. To reverse it, you must return to internal alignment, breath, posture, voltage awareness, until the emotional craving dissolves. Then love becomes exchange, not extraction. Finally, purpose. Purpose isn't a moral concept. It's energetic architecture. It's the pattern that gives your current direction. Without it, energy loops in maintenance mode, constant motion, no expansion. When Victor lost his funding, he wrote in his final note, "Purpose is frequency memory." Forget it, and coherence collapses. That's why burnout isn't from overwork. It's from disconnection from pattern. When you operate from genuine resonance, voltage rises but exhaustion disappears. The grid supports you because you're flowing with rather than against command architecture. Now imagine all three domains synchronized. Money stabilized, relationships coherent, purpose aligned. You become what Victor called a resonant node. A living transmitter of ordered energy in a world addicted to noise. And when that happens, every interaction, every glance, every decision carries command weight. Reality starts answering immediately. Energetic sovereignty is the moment you stop asking reality for permission. You no longer chase alignment. You are alignment. Victor described sovereignty as the final threshold of energy control, when no external frequency can override your signal, because your field maintains self-generated coherence under all conditions. It's not isolation, it's immunity. A living firewall made of awareness. He wrote, "The sovereign doesn't defend their energy. They maintain such stability that distortion cannot anchor. True sovereignty begins when you recognize every emotional hook as an invitation to lose coherence. The world tests your command constantly. Someone criticizes you, a plan fails, uncertainty rises, and the field waits to see if you'll collapse into reaction or remain stable. Each test refines voltage endurance. Victor proved this in a controlled experiment. Participants were subjected to sudden emotional shocks, loud noises, personal insults, unexpected losses, while their biofields were monitored. Those who maintained rhythmic breathing and full-body awareness produced minimal distortion. Their electromagnetic signature barely shifted. He called them static null subjects, meaning their coherence held through turbulence. That's the level where energy becomes authority. Not dominance, not manipulation, simply undeniable stability. The world begins to recalibrate around your rhythm because the field trusts consistent signals over chaotic ones. The path to sovereignty demands one thing above all: responsibility for your broadcast. No blaming circumstances, no waiting for signs. Every leak, every distortion, every reaction, yours to transmute. Not as guilt, but as command refinement. Victor warned that collective systems fear the sovereign individual, because once you can generate your own coherence, you no longer feed on their frequencies. Fear, outrage, dependency. You step outside the emotional economy that runs the world. That's why his research was erased. A population that regulates its own field is ungovernable through fear. To live sovereign is to become a stable reference point in a sea of interference. You stop trying to influence others and instead maintain such clarity that distortion dissolves on contact. It feels like silence inside movement, power without aggression, certainty without rigidity. Every word, every gesture, every silence becomes broadcast code, and those around you, without even knowing why, begin to stabilize. That's the silent revolution Victor predicted. A world recalibrated not through rebellion, but through coherence. Energetic sovereignty is not a destination. It's an operational state, where emotion, thought, and breath form one unified signal. And once you reach it, no system can erase your research, because the proof is living inside you. Picture this: a lone figure standing in an empty laboratory, fluorescent lights flickering against walls still scarred by smoke. The machines are silent, the data drive's gone, yet something hums beneath the stillness, a rhythm you can't hear but can feel. That's the echo of Victor's last experiment. Not burned, not deleted, absorbed into the field itself, because truth like this doesn't die. It distributes. It travels through every person who learns to regulate their own voltage, to speak in the silent language of coherence. That's how his work survived, through you. Every emotion you stabilize, every breath you align, every thought you refine into command is a line of his lost code returning to the grid. You're continuing his research each time you choose clarity over reaction. That's the real forbidden secret. Control of energy was never stolen. It was hidden in plain sight, encrypted in your nervous system. Reality, at its core, is listening for stable frequencies, waiting for a signal it can trust. When you become that signal, environments obey. Doors open. People soften. Timing sharpens. Not through magic, but through field logic. Victor once said, "The universe is not asking what you want. It's asking who's issuing the command." And that question lives inside every breath you take. So tonight, before you sleep, sit still for a moment. Feel the quiet current under your skin. That's not imagination, it's circuitry. You are surrounded by responsive code, waiting for clear instruction. Breathe, stabilize, transmit. Because every thought is a line of command, every feeling is voltage in motion, and every coherent human becomes a node of power in a grid that forgot what obedience truly means. The erased research wasn't the tragedy. The tragedy is how long it took for us to remember that we are the experiment.